Cool. And I'll hand over to my fantastic colleagues on the design system team to kick off the day.
All right, so hello and welcome to our talk about the future of GOV.UK design system. Let me introduce myself. I'm Trang and I'm the product manager on the GOV.UK design team. Charlotte, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah, I'm Charlotte. I'm an interaction designer on the design system team, and I'll hand over to Romaric.
Hi everyone, I'm Romaric. I'm a front-end developer on the design system team.
Fabulous. But today I want to share with you a little bit about the direction we think the Gov.uk design system should be heading. By telling you where we are focusing our energies, I hope to clear up the ambiguity around what we will and what we won't be doing so that you know what to expect and we can build and foster a better understanding between us, the community, and those working on other departments' design systems. Although the design system team have been thinking about this quite a lot, we still want your input on this. Oh, a bit too fast. Wait. Yeah. And I'm going to show a Padlet board with you. So this is what the Padlet board looks like. And I'm going to just put a link in the chat. Here we go. Now you can, as we're talking about this, you can add in some comments that you, as you like about things, or give us some feedback around what you think. So, but you just need to click on the little box with the little plus on it, and then you could add your comment to that. We'll also have time for Q&A at the end, but if you like, you can also add your questions into the chat and we'll try our best to answer all of them at the end. Okay, so I want to take you back to before gov.uk to talk about where the design system came from and to give you a little bit of context around where we are heading. So more than a decade ago, the government design services looked like this. There were hundreds of websites from different departments and agencies in government. There were websites for campaigns and websites for transactions. Content overlapped and were often contradictory. It was difficult for users to navigate. There were broken user journeys, especially where services span multiple departments. In 2012, gov.uk was launched. We moved all the information from those hundreds and hundreds of sites onto this new domain. We got rid of duplicated and contradictory information. Here we go. Okay. It's important to note that government services on gov.uk were built by many teams in other government departments. There were hundreds of these service teams and hundreds of services on gov.uk. At the start, individual designers, developers, content designers were building things from scratch. There were inconsistencies and people building the same thing over and over. Eventually, various shared resources were created to address these problems. It took 6 years for all of this to accumulate into the creation and launch of the gov.uk design system. We weren't there from the start. It took a long time for components and patterns to converge into what we take for granted today as what we intuitively take as the look and feel of gov.uk. All the components and patterns came from people sharing their work across government. Back in the very early days, this was on something like Hackpad, and later in a slightly more official way on gov.uk elements, templates, and the front-end toolkit. The things that you see now on the gov.uk design system were designed by people like you, coded by people like you, tested and used by people like you. It needs a community to support it well, and an incredible amount of time and effort from a dedicated team as well. Over the past 6 years, we've had 62 different people working on the gov.uk design system. And there are currently 18 team members on the team now, some of which are on the call right now. The people working on the design system will change and the things we focus on will evolve over time. And that's to say that the things that we share today might still change as we adapt to what's happening around us. So what is the design system? It is the components, patterns, and guidance that can help you design and develop consistent, usable, and accessible services for the Gov.UK ecosystem. I want to expand on the Gov.UK ecosystem a little bit. It's really anything that looks like Gov.UK, not necessarily just transactional services. In the past, we have been quite ambiguous about whether we would expand beyond this. We hear from many users of the design system. They're asking us to do more, to build more, to provide more things on the design system. They see the potential benefit that sharing knowledge brings, why are we solving the same problems multiple times? The design system team, both past and present, are a team of people who really want to help, solve these problems. So it's actually quite difficult for us to admit that we can't do it. Or I'm going to leave you with a bit of food for thought. A design system for everyone is a design system that works for no one. We're a fairly mature design system, having worked at it for 6 years now. We've added many things, we've changed many things, and the ecosystem around us is constantly changing as well. If you are someone who maintains a design system, you can understand the difficulty of maintaining what we already have. This means that we can't always do the shiniest thing. We need to focus on the foundational things that you can build on top of and adapt, rather than try and do it all and do it in a mediocre way. You're probably sitting there thinking, okay, what do you mean by foundational? Actually, that's something we don't really know either, and it's something we're exploring. The best way I can describe this is to use an analogy of Lego blocks. So this is, a picture of my very limited personal collection, and you can probably see that there's a mix of Duplo and Lego in it, which actually makes this a little bit even more appropriate. Did you know Duplo and Lego are compatible? The Gov.UK design system aims to build and maintain more things that represent this kind of blocks, pieces that fit fairly neatly together in a structured way, and with some patience, pretty stable as well. Things that will result in multiplier effects across government. These are the kind of things that you can use as the foundation to build your service on top. Things that you can adapt and to what you're building. We want to focus less on these sorts of pieces. The picture shows a bunch of random bits and bobs of various Lego sets. And in context, and with the instructions, they're fantastic. You can build great stuff with it, but they are far too specialized. It's made specifically for a certain context and situation. That's not to say that they are unnecessary. You need a combination of, plain stable things and some really complex things to build a great service. We want to provide the most value for our users and community, and that's why we need to focus on the former and less on the latter. So with that, the team and I are going to talk about the 4 main areas that we want to focus on in the future. I'll pass you over to Charlotte to begin that part of the talk.
Yes, thank you, Trang. I think we all love that analogy. It's getting a lot of love in the chat. So I'm now going to speak about number 1 and 2 in this 4-stage overview of what we're going to cover. So I'm going to be speaking about components and patterns, and then about guidance. So first, components and patterns. Part of the team's focus is going to be still on components and patterns. As Trang just alluded to, there's going to be a lot more focus on other things, but we're still going to put part of our time towards components and patterns. But as we're sort of demonstrating, we're not going to turn lots and lots of components and patterns. We're not going to keep adding and adding and adding. One, because we just don't have the time to for that whole list. We'll be here for hundreds of years. So we're going to balance updating what we already have with introducing new things. So we're going to try and make things that we have in our system better, as well as add in new things. We're currently working on improvements to the header and navigation. So as Imran said in the opening, we're now trying to co-design all of our new contributions with the community. In this navigation contribution, we're looking at not only updating our header component and the guidance we have around that, but we're also looking at introducing a new component, name to be determined, which will have sort of service, navigation and content for services within it. So now onto guidance. And we want to help users use what's already in the design system better. So as we've been over the last couple of years exploring sort of how our users get to the site and their journeys within it. And we want to help users go find relevant content in the different places of the site. So it's not repetition, but it's improving the journeys across our content on our site. We want to help users adapt what's in the design system to build what they need. So we want to help users improve our components and guidance to the context that they have and get more feedback on things that we have in the design system. And that it also might not be something that's on GOV.UK. So that our focus is on supporting GOV.UK products, but you might want to adapt it to your own use case that's outside of that. We want to help users use our stuff as intended. So we acknowledge that this might be in our part down to our guidance. And so we see services often use our things in slightly funky ways. And we want to improve our design system so that we can help users do less wonky things, I guess. We also are interested in doing more research with design system users. So if you want to take part in that, it would be really appreciated. I think someone looks like they're going to put a link in the chat. But what I am asking here is if you could email our support email address, which I think is design-system-support at digital.cabinet-office. Gosh, here I forgot my own email address, office.gov.uk, and just put in the subject, sign me up for research the GOV.UK design system. And that'd be really great. We also have an open survey at the moment, which I think Romaric's probably going to talk about later on, about the crown logo update, but maybe not to give too much away. I'll pass over to Romaric now, who's going to talk you through about system level improvements.
Thanks, Charlotte. So components, patterns, and guidance, if you think about the design system, that's probably the first thing that comes to your mind. It's colors, it's typography, it's spacing, it's very in your face and visual. But behind the scene, there's also a lot of work that needs to happen for a design system to keep working. It's things like thinking about browser support and which browsers are gonna how things are gonna behave in different browsers, which are gonna have like different features. It's things like we did recently with GOV.UK Frontend v5, where we decided to stop providing the same level of JavaScript support to all browsers and move to having a different experience depending on what your browser supports. That means that, for example, if you have a modern browser, you get an accordion with like all the bells and whistles. You get buttons, you can click the sections, expand and collapse. If you come with a much older browser, no JavaScript at all, you'll still be able to do what you need because all the content's going to be on the page thanks to progressive enhancement. But two different users may get like two different experiences when looking at our components. And that's something we're going to like lean into more and more going forward. Not necessarily in such like a black and white manner of like just JavaScript, no JavaScript, but maybe in more subtle ways, like part of the JavaScript works in like in modern browsers, and that part, because it requires a more modern feature, won't be provided on all the browsers. In turn, that enables us to ship less code to users, which is beneficial to them. Data is not free. However you pay your mobile phone or your internet connection, there's a cost to that. So less code shipped is good for that. It's also less electricity used to transfer data, so that's a little good for the environment as well. And that also enables us, when we build the design system, to lean into those newer features a bit sooner than like if we had to wait for like the trail of old browsers to disappear and we can use them. It's thinking about accessibility, legal requirement in the public sector, but just generally a good thing to do to build things accessibly. And I'm not just talking about like building our components so they're accessible and making our guidance explain how to use those components to like have more chances for services to be built accessibly as well. But it's things around like keeping abreast of the changes in that space. So the WCAG 2.2 was released October last year, I believe. But before that, it's like looking at how those guidelines were developing to be able to anticipate when they would be released and what would be the strategy to update. What happens when like accessibility concerns get told to us about our components? How do we handle them? How do we prioritize them? So a lot of work on accessibility that needs to keep being done for the design system to work. It's also responding to things like org requirements when, for example, the logo, the crown next to the GOV.UK in the logo had to change. And again, the visible part of designing it, the technical part of building it, but also a lot of care into like how to build it and how to release it to try and minimize the impact on services, thinking about like in which release we can make this or that change so that like in the future, when comes the time to actually flip the crown to the new one, the changes for the services are as little as possible. It's also keeping an eye on tooling, not really just for looking at the new shiny things, but tooling keeps growing and there might be new tools and features both in the dev and design space that we may want to benefit from. Another thing regarding tooling, which is maybe a little more annoying, is that sometimes tools are quite happy to just say, oh, that feature, that was great, but end of life at this point in time. And that's the kind of thing we need to keep an eye on and keep anticipating. One of such things, for example, is SAS, the tool we use to build the design system style sheets. They're going to deprecate in the near future. No real big timeline on that, but just we know that's going to happen. They're going to deprecate some features for importing one style sheet into another, which means we're going to have to change our components, which means services are going to need to adapt to that. And the same, we're going to need to plan carefully which changes we do when and in which fashion to minimize the impacts. And while we're talking about code, there's a fair bit of code in the design system, like APIs for developers to create the components, options in those APIs that need to be named consistently from one component to another. And that consistency could be furthered. For example, we've seen teams replicating the structure we have for the files in the that have the code of the components. Is that something that would be useful to like formalize, to have like a component is structured in this way across like not only the design system but also services? And our components also have some low-level building blocks to help build them, like some base features, some code for initializing them, for some code for the internationalization or like their configuration, which could benefit services and provide more consistency, not only visually, but then for the developers using the design system, which means that when they need to touch our components or their service component, it would be more familiar. And the reverse, when a component from a service needs to be upstreamed in the design system, part of the work would already be done. So all in all, behind like the very visual part and of the design system, there's a lot of like either low-level changes or changes that need to be spread across services that will still need to happen for the design system to be successful. And like I mentioned a couple of times, all that while minimizing the upgrade costs for services, providing like early warning and deprecations to let you know if we're going to remove a feature from the design system. Giving you options to opt into new features when they require like not massive changes on your service, but something like the typography scale, where we're providing you like a new set of font sizes, you may want to review all the pages in your service. That's why when we released it, you don't get it just by upgrading in the design system. You need to turn on a flag when you compile your style sheet to have them. That lets you pick when you want to like do that update, rather than be like, oh, we can't update to this new version because that's going to like change the font size all across and we don't have the time to review it. There's sometimes though when we're going to have to make those kind of like big changes, like we did for GOV.UK Frontend V5, where the upgrade was a bit more consequent. And we're going to keep providing beta releases early on for trying out those changes and giving and receiving feedback on them. And that feedback is something that's really important to us and really precious, because the more you tell us, the more we're able to build the design system that's working for services. It helps inform our decision, make sure we build things to the actual needs rather than like guess that like, oh, that might be a good idea. Yeah, let's roll with it. And like Charlotte hinted at, we've got a survey to assess the impact of like the latest big changes that we had, which are GOV.UK Frontend V5 and the Crown logo. So if you had to either update to V5 or update the GOV.UK logo to the new Crown, we'd be really, really grateful if you could fill it in. I'll post a link in the chat. And for now, I'll leave Trang talk about transferring power through community.
Thank you. Transferring power through community. So what does this actually mean? Community involvement is what makes the design system what it is today. So we're going to continue to invite you to get involved in our work. You might have already noticed we've already mentioned this several times in the last 30 minutes. Over the days and months to come, we're going to be asking you to kindly spare some of your time to collaborate on what we're working on, give us feedback, help us make decisions. We want to ensure that what we're adding into the design system reflects what is best practice out there in the community, and that it works for you as well. So this collaboration can take many different forms. So it might be a survey, participating in research, joining one of our workshops to give us feedback, or so that we can explore what you've already worked on in your service. And if we have the time and people, we might even kick off another co-design project similar to the task list. It really escaped me. This is where we organize for the community to get their hands dirty and work on a component or pattern that they want to see on the design system together. So if you are interested in joining any of our future collaborations, you can sign up to our mailing list, which I will also put in the chat, or you'll be able to find a link to that on our website under the What's New section. And yeah, so that is the same one that you can sign up to get notified about events like Design System Day. There you go. Yeah, so we know that contributing to the design system is difficult. We find it difficult too. So this is an area that we really want to get better at. We want to reduce the barriers to contribution, not just the big ones that are whole components and patterns, but more importantly, the smaller contributions that tend to be overlooked. So how might people be able to share research about specific components and patterns with us? What about examples? How do they use their components differently in different contexts? What about changes in behavior or tweaks to existing components that could make it even better? So these are the types of contributions that we've been quite poor at accepting and also doing it, actioning within our design system. The design system is just one piece of the puzzle. It doesn't sit alone. There are a number of different government design systems out there that you use to build your service. In a recent In a recent user experience survey that we did in January this year, 47% of respondents told us that they used at least one other design system, and 19% said they used two other design systems. So this is part of the reason why we've organized the Government Design System Assembly. So we're joining up with owners and maintainers of active design system in government. We often hear other design systems having similar challenges to what we have on the design system. We had our first meetup several weeks back, and there are a few things that we think we want to do together. So comparing and aligning our roadmaps to make sure that we're identifying opportunities and joining up, reducing duplications and inconsistencies, working together to solve shared problems such as, benefits analysis, and really just moral support. So I'm really excited about what we could do in this space. Yeah, and so that kind of brings us to the end of the 4 main areas that we want to focus on in the future. Yeah, and just another little nudge. If you want to, you can add some comments and feedbacks to the Padlet board. We're really interested to know what you thought about other things we're focusing on that we shouldn't be, or we should be focusing on other things. It really helps us to make sure that we are on the right track. So thank you. And yeah, I'll open up the floor to any questions.
I think this has started to be answered kind of already, but Romaric, I don't know if you wanted to just explain exactly what's being deprecated SAS-wise and just give a bit more context.
Yeah, sorry for that. I should have maybe been clear on that side. So it's not SAS altogether that's being deprecated, as someone asked on the chat. It's just like their feature for importing one file to another. So they're changing the syntax for doing that and deprecating the what we're using at the moment in favor of like a new syntax that they built in the recent years. So similarly to how we do with the design system, they're giving like a lot of heads up to teams to say like, hey, in the near future, that syntax that you were using up till now is going to go away. So that's going to give us like a period of time to move on to the new syntax. So we're going to move our components to that new syntax, and then like services will have to move theirs. So that's not the whole thing that's going away, just that syntax that we'll need to adapt to.
Okay, fantastic. If anyone has a question, feel free to put it in the chat, or you can pop your hand up and take yourself off mute. There is another question, and it was about are there plans to standardize across the multiple design systems that exist?
I'll answer that. There isn't a plan to standardize things across all the design systems. But that's not to say that we don't want things to be more compatible. I guess we're kind of at the very early stages of trying to collaborate together. So we'll just see what comes out of that. At the start, it's really just about sharing what we already know so that we're not trying to solve the same problems multiple times.
There's before we go to Rahul, there was another one from Rob McCarthy, and it was about could you expand a bit more on what we mean by design system ecosystem, please?
By the ecosystem. So what we're really talking about here when we talk about the GOV.UK design system is pretty much anything that looks and feels like GOV.UK. That's kind of where we want to focus our attention on. What it implies is that we're not going to be doing anything that could be, like customized branding or a generic brand so that you can basically go away and use it in whatever service. What we want to try and do is to put in our guidance how you might be able to change things like the header and the footer, which is where a lot of the branding sits, so that you can customize it yourself. But we won't provide you with any of those things because it's far too difficult for us to make sure that whenever we're updating components and patterns, that it's going to be compatible to whatever you decide, your brand colors are. And that's kind of where we're focusing our attention. So being more specific to GOV.UK and less thinking about or testing, considering what implications there might be if someone was using a different brand.
Okay, fantastic. Rahul, do you want to take yourself off mute and ask your question?
Thanks, everyone, and thanks to all of you guys. This is really fruitful insights for design system. I'm an interaction designer working for an agent-facing service. Like recently, I Am I okay to ask just a small my query which I faced with using the design system components? So just we went for the usability testing for our service, and I found there are a few the problems with the accessible user for the screen reader. Why we are using the check answer page where we have the summary component. So user will not be able to go through all the like summary like a proper way to key and the what is the answer of the key and the like action for the specific key if they want to change. Like screen reader is going to the vertically, and they were not able to understand which key they need to change and which change link is going to change for the specific key component or like information. So like during that I got one customized component from Dan, who's working for Access to Work, and it was just similar the copy of the summary component, but it was in a table HTML format, so and it works well for that. So is it the right way to use the customized version in the case GOV.UK is not working sometime?
Did anyone want to come in on that?
I did, and I'm just trying to find the issues relating to it, because what we might not have made you aware is we took some front-end components to the Digital Accessibility Centre for an audit last year in the I got balloons in summer, and this was a thing that they noticed with the summary card at that point. But we have made some changes to the summary card and summary list in order to ensure that those links are describing the thing that they're changing. I think that's what you're talking about, is the change links and not describing the thing that they're alongside.
Yes, it was reading like vertically, not the horizontally for the one a specific record. So yeah, that was.
Let me find you the issues that are related, and I'll stick them in the chat if that's okay. And you can come back to me if they don't seem to answer what
Definitely,
you
yeah.
experience. Cool.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. We're just going to move on to there's some lovely questions in the chat, so I'm going to move on to another one. So are there any plans to expand into mobile application design patterns and components? And that's from Gavin in the chat.
I can answer that one. So not at the moment. And the reason behind that is, like I said, it took us 6 years before we had a design system for basically website, right? So, designing for apps for government is still at the early stages. So we don't want to codify designs for app at the moment because, it's still in the innovation stage of like what looks good for apps. And that's why, we're not really looking into that space. We also probably need an entire new team to look at that because it's complicated and we can't just go away and build a whole design system for apps. Charlotte, did you want to add to that?
No, I think my hand's up from earlier. I think that was good.
Okay.
Yeah, Curse of the Legacy
That's
hand
all
there.
right. Cool.
Got another one from Lani, which is, what's the biggest challenge you face with design system improvement right now?
Oh, that's a hard one. There is I think it's just balancing all of the things that we need to do on the design system. So we have 60 something existing components, right? And so, when we get some feedback about some of these things or the guidance change, we need to go away and think about what are the implications of changing this guidance. It's not like we've found so many times that when something, we think it's really, really small and we start digging into it, it ends up opening this whole big can of worms, and then we kind of like it gets complicated really quickly. And so I think that's really tricky. The other thing that makes it really hard for us to make some of the system level improvements that we really want to make is around having to making sure that the design system is suitable and can support pretty much like all of the browsers, really, really old browsers, right? Like we've only recently, or only just last year, stopped supporting IE 8, 9, and 10. So we're still kind of supporting IE 11. And that just means that it makes it really hard for us when we want to try and make, more modern changes. So I think they are the main challenges for us.
All right, fantastic. I'm going to go slightly out of order because there was another question that's kind of related. How do you balance the flexibility of users using components and patterns in their own context whilst not building a DS for everyone? So I guess it's a question about customizability, but then we're not trying to build for absolutely everyone because we wouldn't get anywhere. How do we balance that?
I think that's really tricky. I mean, we're doing I'm going to say we're doing a pretty good job with the navigation component at the moment, because we're kind of looking at all of the services and seeing exactly how we can build something that, like a navigation component that is, that everyone can use. And that's obviously really hard because all your services are really different. And so it means that sometimes we need to, like scope what the component can do quite tightly and for specific things. But also we're thinking about what are some of the edge cases, like how likely are these things to happen? And so it does make it really tricky. And so sometimes we start off with grand ideas and then it just gets simplified into something that is really basic. But these are the kind of things that, like as users of the design system, you don't really see, our thought process behind some of these decisions that we make.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Richard, Shah, did you want to come in on that one?
I did. I just wanted to sort of back up what Trang was saying and say this is where that request for, like your own experiences comes in, because sometimes it feels like we're shooting in the dark a bit. We're going out and collecting examples from the real world. But actually, if you have stuff if what we're developing is pertinent to what you're working on, it's really helpful to have you get in touch and sort of talk about the problems that you're facing with the current solutions and what can be improved and various things along those lines.
Yeah, I think this is where we're hoping the co-design really helps by taking in the different use cases when we're in the kind of planning stages. So yeah, please do come and get involved in our stuff. There are plenty of questions in the chat, but it'd be lovely to hear from someone. So I can see a hand up with Richard. Richard, did you want to come in with your question, please?
Hi, yeah. I guess just like referencing back to the original point right at the beginning that Trang was making, that before the design system existed, there was just a multitude of disparate websites that all needed to be corralled and brought under one umbrella. And that's very much the same kind of situation I'm finding myself at the minute. I'm working somewhere that has numerous different websites, and essentially they're wanting to bring them all under a design system to start to bring some consistency across the different real estates that they've got. So I guess my question, even though it's maybe a bit broad, but like how do you start with something like that?
I don't think we're experts in that area, but I think there was a lot around. It was definitely more stick than carrot, I think, right at the start. There was, like a government mandate that said everyone had to do this. And at that time, I would say, like GDS was quite pushy and making sure that everything happened. So I don't think it's hard without someone saying you have to do this. And I think this is how this worked. And there's a long tail of services slowly getting on board, or just having the time and effort of, like, it takes a long time to change your brand and move everything to under one umbrella. And so it's probably like stick first, I think, is what happened with GOV.UK. And then, it's trying to like work out how you can help all of the various different departments and agencies move on to gov.uk. But I don't really think that helps you too much. But
no, no, you're all right. It's just one of those things where I work for a company that knows that we need a design system. They know that they have all of these completely disparate real estates across the internet, but no one has any idea how to actually start to implement this across all of these, how to get, because all of these other websites have other designers on them. So how do we start telling other designers, sorry guys, you're gonna have to start doing some stuff like this rather than the way that you used to doing it. So there's a lot of, it's almost change management, to be honest, with some of this stuff. Like, how do people change their ways of working? How do we convince people this is a good idea without making them feel like they're just being told to stick to mandated, do this, do this, do this, don't answer back. So yeah, like anything that kind of helps give a bit of advice is welcome.
Charlotte, did you want to come in on that as well?
I would also, I just wanted to pick on the point of like objections from designers potentially, is that I think that the exciting part about a design system is it's not going to replace your work. It's going to allow you to extend your work and make those custom Lego bricks like Trang was talking about. And I think that's the way it needs to be framed. And I think that that's where this team does really well, and that we do like to go out and show and tell what we can do and what other folks who are using our stuff do, and sort of like presenting, like showing the best cases. And so showing someone that's already, like one team that's using your design system already, like the benefits that they've got, and like that starts to trickle on to other folks.
Yeah, no, that sounds pretty realistic. And I'm seeing some stuff like workshop, get co-designer stuff in. So all of this is quite good. So, but yeah, I do kind of have another question, but there are other people waiting. So I will take
Yeah,
a few
we're
more
down
time.
to the last few minutes. So what I will say is we'll save all the questions and we'll see if we can answer some of these questions asynchronously after the event. So do stick your questions into the chat. There's a lovely one here from Evie that's got some likes, which is there's some great guides, trainings for getting to grips with the prototype kit. I was wondering if there were any equivalent trainings for Figma. So I guess this is a question about the Figma library, and I guess just generally some comments on our support for it would be lovely.
I'll take this one. Yeah. So we, in the survey that I mentioned earlier, lots of people told us they use Figma, and that's not something we can support at the moment. We look after the design system, but we can't solve prototyping for government. We actually just don't have enough people, and it's a big effort to do that. So at the moment, we don't have any support, and we don't really look at Figma. But that might be something that, if we have the capacity, we might explore in the future. But no promises.
Yeah, thanks, Trang. Yeah, as you know, as Trang alluded to, we've got a lot of challenges, and it's kind of a case of which one do we get to first. And I think the Figma resource is a community maintained resource, so that is something we might want to look at, is how do we invite the community to kind of update this and build things around it as well. So that is something that's been on my mind. We just have to get around to actually working on building a bit of a environment around that. But yeah, as soon as we get round to that, we will definitely keep you posted. Martin, you've had your hand up. Did you want to come in? And that's possibly the last question before we go for break.
Yeah, thank you, Imran. I was interested in the comment about trying to rewrite the guidance to guide people away from doing some of the funky things you've seen with it, with some components. That's something that we have a challenge with as well in our design system. And I wondered if you could say something about how you managed to draw that line between, on the one hand, we want people to adopt things, and we're really pleased when people use our components. And so we want to sort of be a little bit hands off, and we want to learn from how people use them in real services. On the other hand, every now and then there'll be something. It's just every now and then somebody will use something and it's just not the right tool for the job, and we'll see things in services and go sort of, oh God, not like that. And so I wondered if you just sort of had any thoughts on how you manage that relationship between wanting to keep the guidance, wanting to give clear, good examples, and encourage people to use a component in the right way, while still accepting that, you know, we can't 100% stop people sort of doing bad design, if that makes sense. That was my question, really.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer this. So we have the way that we construct our guidance is we currently do when to use and when not to use, and it's about like making some of those things a bit more detailed perhaps. But we've also our approach thus far on guidance has been to not go good and bad, to just like incentivize people to do the right thing rather than say don't do this thing. We have tried, we've had to take on a bit of a different approach with our WCAG 2.2 guidance that you might have seen in our design system at the moment, where we have to give more like, don't do this. What if you're doing this, do this. Like we've had to be a bit more specific. So we are, I know that within our navigation contribution at the moment, we're taking on those learnings that we've got from doing the WCAG 2.2 guidance and applying those to that space, because I think the limitations in our current navigation in the header is around people not knowing like what's the right code of conduct or practice with it. So yeah, providing more answers is actually the main outcome for navigation, I think.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you. Yeah, that makes sense.
Just to come in on that as well, I think we're also thinking beyond guidance, what other kind of things we can offer in support of that. So we do try and run workshops and bits of training where we can as well. So we're just thinking of our overall offer. So change guidance, maybe we can have examples or more active things on GitHub of how other people are using that component or pattern, but also, you know, hopefully we can share some best practice through either training we run or things like Design System Day, and we have Vicky running something this afternoon. So we're trying to do that increasingly as well. And I think I've frozen.
I can still hear you, Imran.
Oh, okay.
we can hear you.
My screen has completely frozen.
Whilst
but
it's just, can I just pipe up just for a second whilst it's still frozen? Thank you for
yeah,
everyone.
go for it.
Thank you for everyone who pointed out that we got a typo in the email address. You should have the correct ones up there now. I won't tell you where we found that link. If you dig around enough, you can find it. Yeah, so you should have the correct link now in the chat. So thanks everyone. Sorry for the confusion that caused.
Yeah, I think we are at break time anyway. So we're going to take a short break. We've run a few minutes over, but you should still get 10 minutes. And we'll be back at 11:15 with Daniel Fontanida from Bumble, talking about leading the system. My screen has frozen, so if someone could move to the next slide, that would be extremely useful. The next holding slide until we go on break. So thank you, everyone, and hope to see you back at 15:15.